Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a journey, not into the romanticized world of silent blades and acrobatic leaps, but deep into the grim, often terrifying, reality behind one of history's most misunderstood professions. Imagine this. The moon is a sliver above a sleeping medieval city, casting long, eerie shadows. You're cloaked, moving silently through narrow, refuse-strewn alleyways, every sense heightened, every sound a potential threat. Your hand instinctively rests on the hilt of a concealed dagger, its cold steel a familiar comfort. This isn't the glorious pursuit of justice or freedom. It's a life of endless paranoia, grinding discomfort, and the constant, chilling proximity of death, both for your target and, inevitably, for yourself. You probably won't survive this without becoming a paranoid wreck or ending up on a spike. But we're going to dive into how a medieval assassin's life truly sucked. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling adventurous, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you guys are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself transported back to the High Middle Ages, perhaps in a bustling European city like Venice or Paris, or perhaps in the shadowy fortresses of the Nizari Ismaili, the legendary assassins of the Middle East. The very word assassin conjures images of superhuman skill, stealth, and unwavering loyalty to a mysterious master. But the reality was far grittier, far more desperate, and far less glamorous. Your life is not one of daring adventure, but of grinding tedium, constant fear, and profound isolation. The romanticized image of the lone, hooded figure, effortlessly blending into shadows and striking with impossible precision, is largely a modern invention. In the medieval world, stealth was crude, technology limited, and personal combat, while deadly, was rarely the elegant dance of Hollywood. Your tools are simple, your methods are often brute force disguised as cunning, and your chances of a clean, unnoticed kill, let alone a clean escape, are slim to none. One mainstream historical fact that completely shatters the popular myth of the master assassin is that medieval assassins, whether acting as professional killers for hire or members of specialized sectarian groups like the historical Hashashin, faced immense practical challenges, often relying on deception, bribery, and overwhelming force rather than impossible stealth, and operating in a world where escape was difficult and capture almost certainly led to torture and public execution. Their lives were characterized by constant danger, suspicion, and a very high mortality rate. Think about it. No night vision goggles, no grapple hooks, just a dark cloak and a prayer. A particularly quirky tidbit that reveals the often desperate measures taken by assassins is the reliance on poisons, not just for discreet kills, but as a last resort for suicide to avoid capture and interrogation. Some historical accounts suggest members of the Hashashin might have carried readily available poisons to ensure they could escape revealing secrets under torture. Imagine carrying a vial of instant death just in case your mission goes sideways. Ensuring your ultimate loyalty is to silence historians still argue whether the historical accounts of the Nizari Ismaili, the assassins being drug-fueled fanatics who jumped off cliffs for their master, were primarily accurate depictions of their devotion, or if these stories were largely exaggerated and propagandistic, spread by their enemies like the Crusaders or Mongols to demonize them and explain their terrifying effectiveness. Was it religious ecstasy or political smear? that shaped their legend. As you begin your grim career, you realize that life is less about glory and more about survival. Your targets are not always evil tyrants. They might be political rivals, religious opponents, or even simply inconvenient individuals whose removal serves someone else's agenda. The morality of your actions, if you ever considered it, quickly gets subsumed by the cold imperative of the mission and the constant threat to your own existence. The silence of the night, once a time for rest, now becomes your battleground. Every shadow could conceal a guard, every sound a hidden threat. Your senses are perpetually heightened, your nerves frayed, constantly searching for openings, for vulnerabilities, and for escape routes. The very air seems to crackle with tension, a perpetual hum of danger that never truly leaves you, and you are utterly, terrifyingly alone in this grim endeavor. Having been introduced to the terrifying solitude of the assassin's nocturnal world, you might wonder how anyone could possibly choose such a life. The grim truth is that your entry into this shadowed profession was often not a choice at all, but a consequence of recruitment desperation, coercion. Forget thrilling recruitment drives or heroic vows. Individuals were often driven into the assassin's life by dire poverty, inescapable debt, the threat of legal punishment, or outright forced impressment, becoming tools in someone else's deadly game with little or no true autonomy. You quickly learn that your career path was paved with grim necessity, not personal ambition, and that the promise of a better life was usually a cynical illusion, traded for a life of fear and violence. It's like being drafted into a secret, deadly army, but instead of fighting for a country, you're fighting for survival, or for someone else's agenda, with a knife as your uniform. You might have been a common peasant, pushed to the brink of starvation by a bad harvest or heavy taxes, or a desperate urban poor, caught in a cycle of debt with nowhere to turn. Perhaps you were a former soldier, skilled in combat, but now unemployed and marginalized, resorting to any means of survival. Or, more chillingly, you might have been a young orphan, taken in by a shadowy organization that trained you from childhood, turning you into a weapon long before you understood the concept of choice. Your past, whatever it was, led you inexorably to this dark threshold. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with romantic notions of free agents is that individuals who became medieval assassins were often recruited from vulnerable populations, including the impoverished, displaced soldiers, or even enslaved persons, driven by extreme socioeconomic desperation or outright coercion, rather than pure ideological conviction or voluntary choice, making their lives often a continuation of exploitation rather than a path to freedom. Their employment was frequently a grim necessity. Imagine the approach. It wouldn't be a grand offer. It might be a hushed whisper in a dark tavern, a subtle suggestion from a shadowy figure, or a stark ultimatum: join us, or face starvation, debt, or the gallows. For a desperate man or woman, though female assassins were exceedingly rare, their lives even more precarious. The promise of regular food, a roof over their head, and perhaps a small, steady income, however tainted, could be an irresistible lure, even if it meant taking lives. You weigh the known misery of your current existence against the terrifying, unknown misery of this new, deadly path. And sometimes, the choice isn't really a choice at all. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the often blurred lines of medieval societal roles is how some assassins were not always professional killers, but might be desperate individuals. Perhaps a disgruntled former servant, or a disgraced noble, hired for a single specific job with a promise of absolution or reward. Imagine having to learn how to commit murder not as a career, but as a one-off, terrifying side gig just to clear your name or feed your family. Historians still argue whether the historical accounts of the Nizari Ismaili, the legendary assassins of the Middle East, truly relied on a system of child indoctrination and drug-induced fanaticism to create unwavering loyalty. Or if these narratives were largely propaganda spread by their enemies like the Crusaders and Mongols to dehumanize them and exaggerate their mystical aura, obscuring the more practical aspects of their recruitment and operations. Was it indoctrination or practical recruitment that built their ranks? If coercion was involved, it could be brutal. Threats against your family, exposure of a past crime, or simply outright kidnapping and forced training. You might find yourself bound, taken to a secluded training ground, and given a stark choice: learn to kill, or be killed yourself. This brutal initiation stripped away your former identity, forcing you to become a tool in the hands of others, a nameless instrument of death. The employer could be anyone: a disgruntled noble seeking to eliminate a rival, a powerful merchant silencing a competitor, or a religious faction removing an enemy of the faith. Your loyalty is often not to a grand ideal, but to the person or organization that holds your livelihood, or your very life, in their hands. This makes your existence precarious. Your usefulness is directly tied to your willingness to kill, and your continued survival depends on your employer's whims. You feel the cold weight of the choice, or the terrifying reality of no choice at all, pressing down on you. Your stomach aches. Your future is a terrifying blank, and the path laid out before you is stained with blood. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about glamorous initiation. It's about the grim reality of recruitment, driven by desperation or coercion. You are molded into a weapon, stripped of your past, and plunged into a world of violence, not by heroic ambition, but by the relentless pressures of a brutal age, making your miserable life a perpetual struggle against forces that commanded your very existence. Having been pulled into the assassin's shadowy world, whether by desperate choice or brutal coercion, your new existence quickly becomes defined by a relentless regimen. Grueling training body and mind. Forget quick lessons in fancy moves. Your apprenticeship in the art of killing is a brutal, all-encompassing conditioning process designed to strip away your former identity, harden your body into a weapon, and sharpen your mind into a tool of cold precision, forcing you to endure unimaginable physical pain and psychological manipulation. You quickly learn that survival here depends not on talent, but on unwavering discipline, and that every ache, every fear, is just another step in forging you into a silent, deadly instrument. It's like being forced into a perpetual, extreme boot camp, where your instructors are ruthless, and the final exam is a matter of life and death, yours or someone else's. You are no longer a peasant, a soldier, or an orphan. You are a trainee, one of many in a secluded, often grim, training ground. This might be a hidden fortress in a mountain range, a secluded manor house, or even a cell-like dwelling beneath a bustling city, far from prying eyes. The days are long, arduous, and monotonous, filled with constant drills, exercises, and lessons that push your physical and mental limits. The air, wherever you are, is thick with the scent of sweat, exertion, and the faint, lingering metallic tang of steel. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contradicts the idea of natural-born assassins is that medieval assassins, particularly those associated with structured groups like the Nizari Ismaili Hashashin, underwent extensive and brutal training regimens that encompassed physical conditioning, martial arts with various weapons, stealth techniques, disguise, and often rigorous mental and psychological conditioning to instill discipline and unwavering loyalty. This comprehensive training transformed individuals into highly effective, albeit specialized, killers. Think about it, becoming a silent, deadly shadow takes a lot more than just looking cool in a hood. Imagine your physical conditioning. Your body, perhaps previously accustomed to agricultural labor or basic soldiering, is systematically broken down and rebuilt. Endless hours are spent running, climbing, enduring hunger and thirst, and practicing feats of agility. You learn to move silently, to navigate difficult terrain in the dark, and to scale walls or overcome obstacles with minimal sound. Your muscles scream with exhaustion. Your hands are raw and calloused, and your entire body is a symphony of aches and pains. This isn't just about strength, it's about endurance, stealth, and turning your body into an extension of your will. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the extreme nature of some of this training, particularly for groups like the Hashashin, is the alleged use of sleep deprivation, fasting, or even hallucinogenic substances, though the latter is highly debated by historians. Remember that from our intro to psychologically break down and then rebuild the recruits, instilling a profound sense of loyalty and obedience to their master. Imagine being kept awake for days, or given strange concoctions, all to make you a more compliant and fearless killer. Historians still argue whether the extreme psychological conditioning described in medieval accounts of assassin training was primarily based on genuine historical practices, reflecting sophisticated if unethical methods of mind control, or if these narratives were largely exaggerated and propagandistic, spread by enemies to demonize the group and explain their terrifying effectiveness through supernatural or chemical means, rather than through sheer discipline and training. Was it mind control, or rigorous discipline, that created their unwavering resolve? Martial arts training is central. You learn to fight with various weapons, the short sword or dagger your most common tool, daggers, garottes, and even rudimentary bows or crossbows. The training is hands-on, brutal, and utterly focused on efficiency and lethal force. You learn to strike quickly, silently, and with devastating precision, aiming for vital points. Disarming techniques, grappling, and silent takedowns are drilled into you until they become second nature. Sparring is intense, often leaving you bruised and bleeding. But each injury is a lesson, a step towards perfecting your deadly craft. Beyond physical prowess, mental conditioning is equally important. You are taught observation, memory, and deduction. You learn to study targets, to understand their routines, their weaknesses, and their vulnerabilities. You are trained in the art of disguise and infiltration, which we'll explore in the next section. Learning to blend into different environments and social strata. You might be taught to speak different dialects or adopt various mannerisms, all designed to make you invisible until the moment of truth. The psychological manipulation is constant. You are stripped of your past, your old loyalties are challenged, and a new identity is forged, one of unwavering obedience to your master and your mission. You might be told that your acts of killing are morally justified, serving a higher purpose, or that paradise awaits those who fulfill their sacred duties. This indoctrination, combined with the brutal physical training, creates a formidable, often cold, instrument of death. You feel the burning in your muscles, the dull ache in your joints, and the constant mental exhaustion that comes from perpetual vigilance and learning. You execute drills flawlessly, your movements becoming fluid and instinctive, but inside, you feel a profound shift, a hardening of your own spirit. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about natural talent. It's about the grueling training, a brutal, all-encompassing conditioning process that breaks your body and reshapes your mind, turning you into a disciplined, lethal, and utterly ruthless weapon, ready to disappear into the shadows and carry out your deadly mission. With your body honed into a weapon and your mind conditioned for precision, your training now shifts from the secluded brutality of the training ground to the perilous art of deception, disguise, and infiltration. Constant risk? Forget Hollywood's seamless costume changes and effortless access. In the medieval world, blending in, gaining trust, and penetrating guarded locations were incredibly dangerous, painstaking endeavors, fraught with constant exposure, suspicion, and the ever-present threat of a single wrong word or gesture leading to immediate discovery and a brutal death. You quickly learn that your most dangerous weapon isn't your blade, but your ability to become someone else, and that every casual conversation or unnoticed door is a high-stakes gamble. It's like being a perpetual actor in a play where a bad performance means you get publicly executed, and every audience member is a potential critic. You're no longer in a training yard. You're on the bustling streets of a medieval city, perhaps posing as a merchant, a pilgrim, a common laborer, or even a wandering minstrel. The air is thick with the sounds and smells of daily life: chatter, street cries, animal dung, wood smoke, a sensory overload you must navigate while maintaining your fabricated persona. Your new identity isn't just about the clothes you wear, it's about every subtle nuance of your gait, your accent, your mannerisms, all meticulously practiced during your grueling training. One mainstream historical fact that completely shatters the myth of effortless stealth is that medieval assassins relied heavily on sophisticated disguises and painstaking infiltration, requiring them to adopt convincing personas, study local customs and dialects, and often spend weeks or months gaining trust or exploiting vulnerabilities to gain access to their targets, making infiltration a prolonged and high-risk phase of their operations. There were no hidden passages visible only to you. Every entry was earned through deception and patience. Think about how difficult it is to really act like someone else for just a few hours. Now imagine doing it for days or weeks, with your life on the line. Imagine the painstaking details. Your clothing isn't just a costume, it's weathered, stained, and subtly altered to reflect your chosen persona, down to the dust on your boots or the rough texture of your tunic. You study the local dialect, practicing its inflections and slang, knowing that a single misplaced word could betray your origins. You observe the daily routines of the people you're meant to blend with, how they greet each other, how they bargain, how they carry themselves. Every detail must be perfect, because a single inconsistency, a moment of unfamiliarity, could be noticed by a watchful guard, a suspicious local, or even a rival agent. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the extreme lengths assassins went to for disguise is the alleged use of elaborate makeup or even minor cosmetic alterations to change facial features, creating a more convincing transformation. While Hollywood might use prosthetics, medieval methods were crude, but sometimes involved colored powders, waxes, or subtle hair treatments. Imagine having to meticulously apply ancient makeup in a grimy, unlit alley, hoping it would make you unrecognizable enough to fool a seasoned guard. Historians still argue whether the historical accounts of assassins effortlessly blending into various social strata were primarily exaggerations intended to heighten their mystique and terror, or if genuine mastery of disguise and social engineering was indeed achievable by highly trained individuals, allowing them to overcome the significant challenges of medieval social mobility and regional distinctions. Was it about theatrical flair or genuine skill that made them so elusive? Gaining access is the true peril. If your target is a noble, they live in a fortified castle, a secure manor, or a well-guarded city residence. Walls are high, gates are manned, and every entrance is scrutinized. You can't simply sneak in. Instead, you must become part of the legitimate flow, perhaps posing as a new servant, a traveling merchant seeking an audience, a religious pilgrim, or even a desperate beggar. This means spending weeks cultivating trust, listening for vulnerabilities, or waiting for a key opportunity like a public procession or a temporary lapse in security. The constant risk of being recognized, of your identity being questioned, is immense. A guard might ask a probing question you're not prepared for. A former acquaintance from your true life might unexpectedly cross your path. A moment of clumsiness, a slip of a fabricated detail, and your carefully constructed persona could shatter, leading to immediate capture. Brutal interrogation. Remember that from Section 9 of Why Justice Sucked, and a very public, agonizing death. You live in a state of perpetual vigilance, your nerves frayed, constantly analyzing every interaction, every reaction. Every casual glance from a passerby feels like a threat. Every conversation a potential interrogation. You suppress your true self, your thoughts, your emotions, burying them deep beneath the layers of your assumed identity. This constant deception is mentally exhausting, transforming your very being into a fragile, meticulously crafted lie. You feel the clammy sweat on your palms, the quickening of your breath as a guard's eye lingers on you, and the profound, terrifying realization that your life hangs by the thinnest thread of your own performance. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about dramatic combat. It's about the relentless, terrifying reality of disguise and infiltration. Your existence is a constant, high-stakes charade, where every step you take, every word you speak, is a gamble against discovery, forcing you to live as a nameless ghost, forever in the shadows, waiting for the one moment to strike, and hoping you can vanish without a trace. With your intricate disguise firmly in place and your mind a steel trap for observation, your tools for the grim task ahead are far from the elaborate, high-tech gadgets of modern spies. Instead, you rely on weaponry close, personal, deadly. Forget silenced firearms or remote explosives. In the medieval world, your instruments of death were intimate, unforgiving, and brutally effective, demanding close proximity to your target and a chilling mastery of lethal force. You quickly learn that assassination is a visceral, hands-on business, and that your weapon is less a tool and more an extension of your own deadly intent, meant to strike swiftly, silently, and with irreversible finality. It's like being a surgeon, but your scalpel is designed for killing, and your operating room is a dark alley or a crowded hall. You run your thumb over the cold, sharpened edge of your dagger, perhaps a slender stiletto or a heavier misericord, concealed expertly beneath your cloak or within a sleeve. This is your primary tool, versatile, concealable, and utterly devastating in close quarters. It's not for open combat, but for a sudden, precise strike. Its very design speaks of intimacy and finality, meant for a quick, silent thrust into vital organs. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with cinematic sword fights is that medieval assassins typically favored small, easily concealed, and quiet weapons like daggers, stilettos, or poisoned blades, designed for close-quarters surprise attacks on unsuspecting targets rather than large, conspicuous swords or bows, prioritizing discretion and lethal efficiency over open confrontation. The aim was to kill quickly and escape unnoticed, not to engage in prolonged combat. Think about it. A sword is great for a battlefield, but terrible for a crowded banquet hall. Imagine the training you endured with this blade. Hours spent practicing precise thrusts, finding the gaps in armor, aiming for the soft spots, the neck, the armpit, the groin, the vital organs. You learn how to maximize damage with minimal effort, how to strike silently, and how to withdraw the blade cleanly. Your hand knows the exact balance, the terrifying weight, and the deadly potential of this simple piece of steel. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the assassin's pragmatic approach to lethality is the occasional use of specialized, often unconventional, weapons designed for specific scenarios. This could include sharpened awls for piercing chainmail, thin, poisoned needles, garrots for silent strangulation, or even modified tools disguised as everyday objects. Imagine having a seemingly innocent carpenter's awl that is actually a deadly weapon designed for a swift, quiet kill. Historians still argue whether the historical accounts of assassins using exotic or highly specialized poisons like those from the legendary Hashashin were primarily based on genuine advancements in toxicology for their era, enabling truly untraceable deaths, or if these narratives were largely exaggerated and fueled by fear and propaganda, enhancing the assassin's mystique and terror by attributing superhuman or supernatural means to their kills. Was it chemical genius, or fear-mongering, that made poisons so legendary? Poison, as you know, is another terrifyingly effective tool. It allows for discreet kills, sometimes hours or days after the initial contact, making it difficult to trace back to the perpetrator. Your training might have involved learning about various toxins, those derived from plants like hemlock or monkshood, or even animal venom, and how to administer them subtly slipped into a drink, smeared on food, or applied to a tiny, almost invisible scratch. The art of poisoning is one of patience, precision, and profound ruthlessness. The fear of poison was widespread in the medieval world, a constant, unseen threat for anyone in a position of power. Beyond the primary weapon, you might carry other small, easily concealed tools, lockpicks for gaining entry, a small purse of coins for bribes, or even a pouch of distracting dust to throw in an opponent's eyes if things go wrong. Every item on your person is functional, compact, and serves a specific purpose in your deadly craft. There's no room for sentiment, no space for excess. The intimate nature of your chosen weapons underscores the brutal reality of your profession. Assassination is not remote, it's intensely personal. You must get close to your target, close enough to look them in the eye, close enough to feel the warmth of their breath, before you deliver the fatal blow. This proximity adds another layer of psychological burden to your already miserable existence. You feel the cold, sharp edge of the dagger pressing against your skin, a constant reminder of its purpose. You imagine the swift, silent thrust, the sudden end to a life. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about grand gestures. It's about the close, personal, and utterly unforgiving nature of your weaponry. Your tools are designed for intimacy and lethality, turning every mission into a brutal, hands-on act of murder, ensuring that your existence is forever defined by the cold, silent precision of your deadly craft, leaving you forever marked by the blood of your victims, even when that blood is never publicly seen. With your close-quarters weapon expertly concealed and your disguise perfected, the intricate dance of infiltration leads you to the most dangerous aspect of your profession, the target high stakes. High risk. Forget minor figures or easy marks. An assassin's true purpose is to eliminate powerful individuals, kings, nobles, rival warlords, or influential clerics, men surrounded by guards, wealth, and a constant aura of suspicion. You quickly learn that your mission isn't just about killing a person, it's about disrupting a power structure, and the consequences of failure are unimaginably swift, brutal, and public. Turning every assignment into a terrifying gamble where your life is merely a pawn in a much larger, deadlier game. It's like playing a game of chess where your opponent is a king surrounded by an army, and your only move is to directly attack him, knowing that one false step means instant, crushing defeat. You receive your assignment, perhaps a whispered command from your master, or a coded message. The target is a man of immense power, perhaps a duke who has offended your employer, a bishop whose influence threatens a rival faction, or a wealthy merchant whose competition is deemed inconvenient. Such individuals live in fortified castles, heavily guarded palaces, or sprawling, well-staffed urban residences. They are constantly surrounded by retinues of armed guards, loyal household knights, and vigilant servants. Their daily routines are known, but every deviation, every unexpected encounter, presents a new layer of risk. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with the idea of easy kills is that medieval assassinations of powerful figures were incredibly difficult and high-risk operations, often failing or resulting in the assassin's capture and brutal execution due to the target's constant vigilance, extensive security, and the lack of advanced long-range weaponry or untraceable methods. Success often depended more on sheer luck, opportune moments, or insider betrayal rather than superhuman stealth. Think about it. A king's life was guarded by legions, not just a few sleepy sentries. Imagine observing your target for days, perhaps weeks, living undercover in their household or blending into the bustling streets outside their residence. You learn their routines when they eat, when they pray, when they travel, who they meet. You scrutinize their security, the patrol patterns of guards, the weak points in the fortifications, the loyalty of their servants. Every detail is crucial, because one oversight, one misjudgment, can lead to your demise. The tension of this constant surveillance is immense, a gnawing anxiety that never truly leaves you. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the extreme paranoia surrounding powerful medieval figures is their meticulous efforts to guard against poison. Hosts would often have food tasted by enslaved servants or designated tasters before consuming it themselves, and wine might be poured from sealed containers or specific, guarded cellars. Imagine having to trust your life to a person whose job is to eat poisoned food to protect you. Every single meal, historians still argue whether the perceived effectiveness of medieval assassins, particularly those using poisons or surprise attacks, significantly impacted political stability by disrupting lines of succession or eliminating key figures, or if the overall chaos of medieval politics meant that such individual kills often had limited long-term strategic impact, as power quickly shifted to other rivals. Did they change history, or just add to the body count? The moment of the strike itself is fraught with unimaginable danger. You must get incredibly close to your target, close enough for your dagger to find its mark. This might be in a crowded hall, amidst a public procession, or in the perceived safety of their private chambers. A single shout from the target, a guard reacting too quickly, or a misplaced blow, and your mission is a catastrophic failure. If the assassination is attempted in a public place, the chaos that erupts will be instantaneous and overwhelming. Screams, drawn weapons, the furious shouts of guards. Your escape route, meticulously planned, might be compromised by the unforeseen reactions of the crowd or the swift response of the target's retinue. The environment itself becomes an enemy, turning the planned, precise strike into a desperate scramble for survival. The stakes are impossibly high. If you succeed, you might return to your master, perhaps to receive your meager payment and await your next perilous assignment. But if you fail, or worse, if you are merely wounded and captured, your fate is sealed. You face not just death, but agonizing torture. Remember that from Section 9 of Why Justice Sucked to extract information about your employer, your methods, and your organization. The threat of betraying your master under duress is a constant, terrifying shadow. You feel the cold sweat on your brow, the pounding of your heart, and the profound, terrifying weight of the lives you seek to end, and the life you perpetually risk. You move through the shadows, watching your target, knowing that any mistake will not only mean your death, but perhaps the compromise of your entire organization. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about glory or effortless kills. It's about the relentless, terrifying danger of taking on powerful individuals. Your existence is a constant high-stakes gamble against overwhelming odds, making every assignment a near-suicidal mission, where the failure to kill someone else means your own agonizing, inevitable end. With the target eliminated and the immediate, terrifying purpose of your mission accomplished, a new and equally perilous phase of your assassin's life immediately begins. Escape treacherous, relentless. Forget the clean getaway of fiction, where you vanish into thin air. In the medieval world, evading capture after a high-stakes kill was an agonizing, often desperate struggle against alarm bells, armed guards, enraged mobs, and the unforgiving terrain of a city or countryside, turning your retreat into a relentless chase where every shadow might conceal a pursuer. You quickly learn that pulling the trigger, or, swinging the dagger, is only half the battle. The other, often deadlier. Half is getting away cleanly. It's like being a contestant on a very real, very deadly game show, where the grand prize for completing your task is simply staying alive, and everyone else is trying to stop you from winning. The moment the kill is confirmed, whether by the fall of your target or the swift, unseen spread of poison, the world explodes into chaos. Alarms ring out from the castle battlements or the city watchtowers. Shouts echo through the streets. Assassin to arms. The guards, initially bewildered, now spring into action, sealing gates, raising drawbridges, and fanning out to search every corner. Your meticulously planned escape route, so clear in your mind during training, might suddenly be compromised by unexpected patrols, a locked door, or a panicked crowd. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with the ease of escape in modern thrillers is that medieval assassins faced immense difficulty in escaping after a kill, as limited urban planning, reliance on rudimentary disguises, lack of rapid transport, and the swift, brutal response of local authorities, including armed guards and citizen militias, made evasion a high-risk endeavor. The absence of a large, anonymous urban sprawl, like modern cities, meant that outsiders were easily spotted, and escape often devolved into a desperate flight through known territory. Imagine sprinting through narrow, winding alleyways, your heart pounding in your chest, the sounds of pursuit growing closer. The cobblestones are uneven, slippery with refuse. You leap over piles of trash, duck under hanging laundry, and squeeze through tight passages, your senses hyper-alert. Every shadowed doorway could conceal a waiting guard, every sudden noise a pursuer. The darkness, once your ally for infiltration, now feels like a blindfold, hindering your escape as much as theirs. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the brutal simplicity of medieval escape is the sheer physical endurance required. Assassins often had to run for miles, through unfamiliar terrain, sometimes even through forests or across open fields, constantly outwitting their pursuers through cunning and sheer physical stamina. Imagine having to outrun a pack of armed men, maybe even bloodhounds, through a muddy, unlit wilderness, all while still clutched by the adrenaline of a fresh kill. Historians still argue whether the apparent success of some medieval assassins in escaping despite overwhelming odds was primarily due to moments of extreme luck, opportune chaos like a fire or a riot they could exploit, or if their reliance on insider help and prearranged safe houses which are largely undocumented played a more significant but hidden role in facilitating their evasion. Was it sheer chance, or a secret network, that allowed some to disappear? Your disguise, so vital for infiltration, now becomes a double-edged sword. If you've successfully changed out of assassin's clothes into a new persona, you might blend for a moment. But the sheer panic in the city means everyone is suspicious. Your hurried gait, your wild eyes, your unfamiliar face, all could draw unwanted attention. You might discard your weapon, burying it in the mud or tossing it into a well, anything to remove the immediate incriminating evidence. The pursuit is relentless. Guards would sound horns, alert watchtowers, and quickly mobilize local militias. The city gates, your primary route to freedom, might be locked down, guarded by armed men scrutinizing every face. You might have to attempt a perilous climb over a wall or a daring swim across a river, risking broken bones or drowning rather than capture. The fear of being caught, of the agonizing torture, remember that from Section 9 of Why Justice Sucked that awaits you, fuels your desperate flight. Even if you make it out of the city, the danger persists. The countryside, seemingly open, offers little true anonymity. Villages would be alerted, descriptions of you would be spread, and every farmer, every traveler could become a potential informant. You might live for days, even weeks, on the run, hiding in barns, foraging for food, your body exhausted, your mind perpetually on edge. You feel the burning in your lungs, the agonizing stitch in your side, and the cold, unyielding grip of pure terror. You stumble, recover, and push forward, driven by the knowledge that every second counts, every step brings you closer to either freedom or an unspeakable end. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about the kill. It's about the treacherous, relentless escape. Your existence is a constant, harrowing flight from consequences, a perpetual chase where the only prize for your brutal work is the fleeting, fragile hope of another day of freedom. A terrifying dance with death that never truly ends until you are either safe or caught. Even with the most meticulous escape plan and the most desperate flight, for a medieval assassin, the statistical reality was grim. Capture, torture, and death. Forget a fair trial or a clean, swift end. If you were caught, your fate was agonizingly certain. Designed not just to punish you, but to extract every conceivable piece of information about your master, your organization, and your methods, turning your body into an unwilling instrument of betrayal. You quickly learn that the medieval state had a terrifying array of tools and techniques to make you talk, and that the only true escape from this fate was to never be caught at all. It's like falling into a trap designed by the most sadistic engineer imaginable, where every moment is filled with excruciating pain. And the goal is to break your mind before your body finally gives out. You stumble, perhaps exhausted from your flight, or perhaps cornered in a blind alley. Armed guards, their faces grim and unyielding, close in on you. The rough hands seize you, binding your wrists, stripping you of your weapons and your desperate illusions of freedom. The cold weight of chains, the harsh glare of torches, and the triumphant shouts of your captors signal the abrupt, horrifying end of your career. Your subsequent journey will likely be to a damp, dark dungeon, the kind we explored in Section 13 of Why Justice Sucked, a temporary holding pen before the true torment begins. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the fate of a captured assassin is that medieval authorities, particularly for crimes as heinous as assassination, which often implicated powerful figures, routinely subjected captured individuals to prolonged and excruciating torture to extract confessions and information about accomplices or employers, regardless of the accused's actual guilt, almost invariably leading to a public and brutal execution. The value of the information you held was immense, ensuring every effort would be made to break you. Imagine the chamber you're brought to. It's likely a cold, stone-walled room deep beneath a castle or city hall, perpetually damp and smelling of fear, blood, and human waste. The instruments of torture are laid out the rack: thumb screws, various clamps, heated irons, and other devices designed to inflict maximum pain without immediate death. Remember these from Section 9 of Why Justice Sucked. Your torturer, perhaps the very executioner who dispenses public justice, moves with an unsettling calm, his face impassive, his movements practiced, a chilling expert in the art of human suffering. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the medieval mindset regarding torture is the legalistic justification that a confession extracted under torture was often considered a voluntary admission of guilt. Once the torture ceased, this allowed authorities to maintain a semblance of legal propriety. Even as they used the most brutal means to force a confession, imagine confessing to something you didn't do, just to make the pain stop. And then that forced confession is used as proof of your guilt in court. Historians still argue whether the widespread reliance on torture in medieval justice, especially for serious crimes like assassination, was primarily a pragmatic reflection of limited investigative tools and a desperate need for information, leading to the use of any means necessary to uncover conspiracies, or if it also served as a powerful tool of state terror and control, demonstrating absolute power over the individual, regardless of the actual reliability of the confessions obtained. Was it about truth or terror that made torture so prevalent? The interrogation begins, but it's not a conversation. It's a relentless barrage of questions, punctuated by escalating pain. The thumb screws might be applied first, slowly crushing your fingers. Then, perhaps, the strappado, hoisting you by your bound wrists until your shoulders dislocate, the pain searing through your body. The goal is not just to hurt you, but to make you betray your master, to give up names, methods, and plans. Every scream, every gasp, is a victory for your tormentors. You resist, remembering your training, the loyalty sworn to your employer, The knowledge that revealing secrets could compromise your entire organization or condemn others to your same fate. But the pain is unimaginable, pushing you to the absolute limits of human endurance. Your body screams. Your mind struggles to maintain coherence, to protect the secrets locked within. You hear your own cries, distorted, animalistic, echoing off the damp stone walls, utterly alone in your agony. If you don't break quickly, the torture can continue for days, stretching your body and your sanity to their breaking point. The Iron Maiden, though likely a later invention, the idea of such a device captures the medieval imagination. The rack, the burning irons, these are not just instruments of pain. They are tools of psychological warfare, designed to strip away your will and leave you a broken husk, desperate for any release. If you finally confess, whether truthfully or falsely, the torment might cease, but your fate is sealed. Your confession, extracted under duress, will be used as undeniable proof of your guilt. Your journey will then conclude with a public, brutal execution, often designed to be as agonizing and humiliating as possible, hanging, drawing, and quartering for treason, or burning for heresy. Ensuring your death serves as a terrifying warning to any other aspiring assassins. You feel the cold, searing pain, the utter helplessness, and the profound, terrifying knowledge that your secrets, your loyalty, and your very essence are being systematically stripped away. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about escaping consequences. It's about the agonizing, almost certain, reality of capture. Your brief, terrifying career culminates in a brutal interrogation designed to break you, followed by a public, agonizing death, ensuring that even in your final moments, your life is defined by the relentless, horrifying grip of medieval justice. Even if you manage to evade capture and the terrifying embrace of the torture chamber, your life as a medieval assassin was defined by a different, more insidious, kind of torment-isolation trust. No one, forget camaraderie or deep personal bonds, your profession demanded a perpetual state of secrecy, suspicion, and profound loneliness, severing you from normal human connection and forcing you to exist as a solitary shadow, perpetually on guard. You quickly learn that everyone is a potential threat, every glance a suspicion, and that your own survival hinges on maintaining an impenetrable wall around your true self, turning your very existence into a chilling prison of paranoia. It's like living in a spy movie, but you're always the lone wolf, and every single person you meet could be trying to kill you or betray you to a brutal end. You walk through a bustling medieval city, or perhaps sit in a quiet corner of a tavern, surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. Your disguise is perfect, your mannerisms impeccable, but beneath the facade, your mind races. Every casual conversation you overhear, every stranger's glance, every unexpected sound, all are scrutinized for signs of danger, for a hint of recognition, for the slightest indication that your cover is blown. This relentless vigilance consumes your thoughts, leaving no room for genuine human connection. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the psychological cost of this life is that medieval assassins lived in profound social isolation, unable to form genuine trusting relationships due to the clandestine nature of their work. The constant threat of betrayal, both internal and external, and the inherent paranoia required for survival, leading to extreme loneliness and psychological strain. Your life was a secret, and secrets are heavy burdens. Imagine the casual interactions that others take for granted: a friendly chat with a shopkeeper, a shared laugh with a neighbor, a moment of genuine vulnerability with a loved one. For you, these are impossible luxuries, fraught with peril. Every word you speak is carefully weighed, every emotion suppressed. You cannot reveal your true identity, your past, or your grim profession to anyone. To do so would put your life, and potentially the lives of your masters, in jeopardy. The smiles you offer are masks. The conversations you engage in are calculated performances. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects this pervasive paranoia is the alleged practice among some historical assassin groups of employing multiple, compartmentalized layers of operatives, where agents in one cell might not know the identities or missions of agents in another, ensuring that if one was captured, they couldn't betray the entire organization. Imagine working with a partner on a mission, but you don't even know their real name or where they live, because that knowledge is too dangerous. Historians still argue whether the extreme levels of secrecy and compartmentalization attributed to groups like the Nizari Ismaili Hashashin were primarily effective organizational strategies to ensure operational security and prevent infiltration, or if these practices inadvertently fostered extreme paranoia and distrust even within their own ranks, leading to internal purges and psychological breakdown for individuals living under such constant pressure. Did it provide security, or just cause endless suspicion? The constant threat of betrayal is a gnawing fear. Your employer, for all their power, might decide you're a liability after a mission, or that your knowledge is too dangerous to keep alive. A rival organization might offer a bounty for your head. Even fellow assassins, if you had them, could be informants, or turn against you for personal gain. You develop a deep, ingrained distrust of everyone, a default setting of suspicion that makes genuine connection impossible. Sleep offers little respite. Your dreams might be filled with the faces of your victims. The screams of the tortured remember those from Section 8's Capture, Torture, and Death, or the relentless pursuit of unseen enemies. You wake in a cold sweat, your senses immediately alert, unable to truly relax even in the supposed safety of your temporary lodging. The isolation is not just external, it's an internal prison, built from constant fear and the heavy burden of your secrets. You long for genuine human connection, a moment of true intimacy, a shared laugh that isn't a performance, but you deny yourself these luxuries, for they are weaknesses, vulnerabilities that could lead to your demise. Your existence is a series of calculated risks, and human trust is the biggest risk of all. You feel the cold weight of your own secrets, the perpetual tension in your shoulders, and the profound, aching loneliness that defines your every waking moment. You walk through crowded streets, a nameless phantom, unseen and unacknowledged by the vibrant life around you, precisely because you have chosen or been forced into a life that demands such utter self-erasure. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about dramatic combat. It's about the soul-crushing reality of isolation. Your existence is a solitary dance with paranoia, a constant, agonizing struggle to trust no one, making your miserable life a perpetual, lonely vigil, forever separated from the warmth of human connection, a ghost haunting the edges of society until your inevitable, solitary end. Even if you somehow manage to endure the profound psychological torment of isolation and perpetual paranoia, your grim reward for a successful mission offered little true solace. Pay and reward, fleeting, tainted. Forget vast riches, lavish retirement, or widespread recognition. The monetary compensation for a medieval assassin was often meager, quickly spent, and always carried the indelible stain of the bloodshed to acquire it, providing little lasting security or dignity. You quickly learn that your life is cheaper than you think, and that the coins in your hand are a constant, chilling reminder of the horrifying acts you've committed, offering no true escape from your miserable existence. It's like being paid in cursed gold, where every piece you touch brings only fleeting comfort and a lingering sense of dread. You return from a completed mission, perhaps slipping back into a hidden safe house or presenting yourself to your shadowy employer. The initial adrenaline of the kill and escape might still be coursing through your veins, but it quickly dissipates, replaced by the mundane reality of payment. You're handed a small purse of coins, perhaps a few silver pieces, or a handful of copper ones. This is your reward for risking your life, for training relentlessly, and for extinguishing a human life. The sum, while perhaps more than a common laborer might earn in weeks, is a pittance for the risks you take and the skills you possess. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with the myth of assassins growing rich from their kills is that medieval assassins, particularly those operating as professionals for hire, were often paid relatively modest sums for their services, which, while more than a common laborer, were rarely enough to guarantee long-term financial security or a lavish lifestyle, keeping them tied to their dangerous profession by necessity. The immense risks involved rarely translated into immense wealth, especially after expenses. Think about it. Why pay a lot for a life when desperate people can be found cheaply? Imagine trying to stretch this meager payment. You need food, a place to sleep often, a cheap, anonymous lodging, replacement tools if yours were lost or damaged during a mission, and perhaps a few more disguises. The coins quickly dwindle, forcing you to seek out your next assignment, perpetuating the brutal cycle of your existence. There's no pension plan, no sick leave, no guaranteed income. Your survival depends entirely on your next successful kill. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the pragmatic, yet often morally ambiguous, nature of your payment is that your compensation might not always be in pure coin. It could involve goods stolen during the mission, a promise of future protection, or even information deemed valuable to your survival. Imagine being paid in a fancy cloak that you can't wear publicly, or a rumor about a rival that might help you, but brings no immediate food to your table. Historians still argue whether the relatively low pay for assassins was primarily a reflection of the overall economic realities of the medieval period, where even skilled labor was often poorly compensated, or if it was also a deliberate strategy by employers to keep assassins financially dependent and thus more pliable, ensuring their continued service through necessity rather than loyalty. Was it market value or calculated control that kept pay so low? The money you earn is tainted. It is blood money, acquired through acts of murder. You cannot spend it openly in a way that draws attention, lest your sudden wealth attract suspicion or, worse, reveal the nature of your profession. You spend it cautiously, discreetly, often in the shadows, knowing that every coin is a constant reminder of the life you took. This taint extends beyond the financial. It's a moral weight that colors every transaction, every interaction. The rewards, beyond the immediate payment, are fleeting. A brief sense of accomplishment, perhaps, a temporary reprieve from the gnawing hunger or the constant cold. But there's no recognition, no public acclaim, no lasting legacy beyond the whispered rumors of your deadly effectiveness. Your successes are celebrated by those who hired you, but only in secret. and never with true appreciation for the human cost. You return to your solitary existence, the few coins a cold weight in your hand. You count them meticulously, knowing how quickly they will vanish, and how soon you will need to risk your life again. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about growing rich. It's about the grim reality of your pay and rewards. Your compensation is meager, quickly spent on mere survival, and forever stained by the blood of your victims, providing no true escape from the misery of your profession. You're condemned to a life where wealth is fleeting, tainted, and ultimately unable to buy you peace or a release from the relentless, brutal grind of your shadowy existence. Even if your hands are full of the meager, tainted coins from a successful kill, a more profound existential cost is exacted by your profession identity loss, a nameless ghost. Forget knowing who you truly are. The life of a medieval assassin demands the complete erosion of your former self, forcing you to exist as a series of fabricated personas, a phantom moving through the world with no fixed identity, no true name, and no genuine personal history. You quickly learn that to be effective, you must become nobody, turning your very being into a hollow, shifting shell, forever lost in the shadows. It's like living 100 different lives, but none of them are truly yours, and the real you slowly vanishes, leaving only a chilling echo. You look at your reflection in a murky puddle in a dark alley, and you barely recognize the face staring back. It's a face you've meticulously crafted for your current persona, perhaps a weary merchant, a devout pilgrim, or a humble scholar. The eyes are not your own. They hold the careful blankness of someone trying to hide everything. Your true name, your family, your past life, all have been systematically erased or buried so deeply that recalling them feels like dredging up a ghost. This isn't just a tactical choice, it's a psychological necessity for survival, but one that comes at an immense personal cost. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with modern notions of self-identity is that the clandestine nature of a medieval assassin's life often necessitated a profound loss of personal identity, as individuals adopted multiple personas, severed ties with their past, and lived under constant deception, leading to severe psychological detachment and an erosion of their true self for the sake of operational security. You become a character in someone else's deadly play, forever unable to be yourself. Imagine the constant mental effort. Every time you adopt a new disguise, remember those from Section 4. Disguise and infiltration. You must fully embody that persona. You speak with a different accent, adopt new mannerisms, and internalize a fabricated backstory. You live the lie so completely that the truth of who you once were begins to fade. Your emotions become muted, your genuine reactions suppressed, replaced by the calculated responses of your current role. You are always acting, always performing, even when you are alone, because the habit of concealment becomes so deeply ingrained. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects this erosion of self is the alleged practice among some assassin groups of having their recruits undergo symbolic death and rebirth rituals, where their old identity was ritually discarded, and they were given new names and a new purpose, cementing their transformation into a loyal, nameless agent. Imagine participating in your own funeral, not because you're dying, but because your old self is being ritually killed off to make you a more effective killer. Historians still argue whether the extreme psychological detachment and apparent willingness of some assassins to sacrifice their lives were primarily a result of such rigorous indoctrination and ritualistic identity erasure, or if it was simply a coping mechanism for individuals already driven to desperation. Finding a new purpose, however grim, in collective identity, rather than a total loss of self. Did it create empty vessels, or merely highly dedicated ones? The profound loneliness you experience, remember, isolation trust. No one, from Section 9, is intrinsically linked to this identity loss. You cannot form genuine relationships because you can never be truly honest about who you are. Every potential friend, every fleeting connection, is a risk, a threat to your carefully constructed deception. You are perpetually a stranger, even to yourself. Your past, your family, your memories, they become ghosts, fleeting echoes from a life you can no longer inhabit. You suppress the longing for familiarity, for genuine affection, because such emotions are weaknesses that could compromise your mission. You exist in a vacuum of your own making, surrounded by the shadows of countless assumed identities, none of them truly yours. Even your successes are anonymous. There are no public accolades, no medals of honor, no recognition for your deadly craft. Your achievements are known only to your shadowy employer, and perhaps to a few other nameless figures in your organization. You are a silent hand, a forgotten force. Your impact felt, but never publicly acknowledged. You feel the hollowness inside, the constant ache of a self that is no longer clearly defined. You whisper your true name in the dark, wondering if it still belongs to you, if it still holds any meaning. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about dramatic combat. It's about the soul-crushing reality of identity loss. Your existence is a constant, terrifying performance, where your true self slowly erodes, leaving you a nameless ghost, forever wandering the shadows of a world that knows you only by the fleeting, fabricated faces you wear. A profound and miserable testament to the cost of living a life in perpetual disguise. Even if the profound psychological toll of identity loss didn't consume you, another insidious and often unseen danger gnawed at your physical well-being. Health poisons peril. Forget simply wielding a dagger. The medieval assassin's repertoire often included the use of various poisons, and the very act of preparing, handling, and administering these lethal substances posed a constant, terrifying threat to your own health, slowly, subtly, and sometimes agonizingly, undermining your body from within. You quickly learn that the tools of your trade, meant to kill others, could just as easily, and often silently, kill you, turning every preparation into a chilling gamble with your own life. It's like being a chemist who knows every single formula is lethal, and you're forced to mix them with your bare hands, hoping you don't accidentally breathe in or touch the wrong thing. You are in a secluded, dimly lit workshop, perhaps a hidden room in your safe house or a remote laboratory. Before you are vials, mortars, and pestles, holding various powders, liquids, and dried plant matter. The air might carry faint, pungent, or even sweetish odors, the telltale signs of potent toxins. Your hands, already calloused from training, now move with meticulous caution, for one misstep, one careless breath, could turn your intended weapon against yourself. This isn't just about mixing chemicals, it's about playing a deadly game with your own mortality. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with modern safety protocols is that medieval assassins often employed various natural poisons derived from plants, fungi, or animals for discreet kills. But the lack of understanding of toxicology, safe handling practices, and proper dosage meant that they often inadvertently exposed themselves to these dangerous substances, leading to chronic illness, neurological damage, or accidental self-poisoning. Your very means of dispatching others was a constant threat to your own health. Imagine grinding a dried plant, perhaps monkshood or hemlock, into a fine powder. The dust rises, invisible, insidious. You might wear a cloth over your mouth, a rudimentary attempt at protection, but you're still inhaling tiny particles. Or perhaps you're distilling a potent liquid, the fumes acrid and burning your nostrils. Your eyes might sting, your throat might feel raw, and a subtle tremor might pass through your hands. These are immediate, physical reactions to the very substances you are preparing to use on another. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the dangerous lack of knowledge about medieval poisons is the accidental discovery of remedies for poisonings or new toxic effects. Assassins or their handlers might inadvertently discover the symptoms of chronic, low-level exposure, or find that a specific antidote works for one type of poison but not another, purely through trial and error, often with lethal consequences for the test subjects or themselves. Imagine learning about the long-term effects of a neurotoxin by slowly experiencing them yourself over months, turning your body into an unwitting experiment. Historians still argue whether the perceived effectiveness of medieval poisons, particularly in accounts of untraceable or magical assassinations, was primarily due to genuine advancements in toxicological knowledge, however rudimentary, enabling truly discreet kills, or if it was often exaggerated by fear and superstition, with many attributed poisonings actually being deaths from natural causes or disease in an era of poor medical diagnosis. Was it scientific mastery or public paranoia that gave poisons their terrifying reputation? The long-term effects of constant low-level exposure were even more insidious. You might suffer from chronic headaches, unexplained fatigue, persistent nausea, or tremors. Your skin might develop rashes or sores. Your mind, already strained by paranoia, might experience bouts of confusion, memory loss, or strange hallucinations, all subtle symptoms of the very toxins you handle regularly. These aren't immediate, dramatic effects, but a slow, agonizing deterioration, a constant, unseen battle within your own body. Accidental poisoning was a constant risk. A single drop on your skin, a moment of inattention, a slight miscalculation in dosage, and the weapon meant for your target becomes your own grim fate. You might carry antidotes if your organization provided them, but their effectiveness was often dubious, and the timing of their administration was critical. The fear of a sudden, agonizing death from your own tools is a chilling companion. You might also be exposed to contaminants from your training. Remember that crude disguise makeup section 4. Some pigments or ingredients could be toxic. The unhygienic conditions of your daily life, no running water, no soap, no clean environments further exacerbated any internal or external exposure, making your body more vulnerable to the silent creep of poison. You feel the persistent tremor in your hands, the dull ache in your stomach, and the constant awareness that your own body is a potential victim of your profession. You meticulously clean your tools, wash your hands with simple lye soap. Remember, and try to air out your secluded workshop. But you know that the threat is always there, invisible, insidious. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about dramatic combat. It's about the relentless, horrifying reality of poison's peril. Your very means of taking life constantly threatens your own, making your existence a slow, agonizing gamble with invisible killers, a chilling testament to the internal cost of wielding such deadly power. Even if you manage to evade capture, avoid the agonizing effects of your own poisons, and endure the soul-crushing weight of identity loss, your life as a medieval assassin was constantly undermined by a cold, insidious reality. Betrayal internal, external. Forget unwavering loyalty or the honorable code among shadowy figures. Your profession was a viper's nest of shifting alliances, double crosses, and the ever-present threat of being sold out by the very people you served, or by those you thought were your allies. You quickly learn that trust is a fatal luxury, and that your own survival often hinges on your ability to predict and counter the treachery of others. It's like being trapped in a perpetual game of poker where everyone is bluffing, and the stakes are your life, and the dealer is the most treacherous player of all. You find yourself receiving a new assignment, perhaps from a known handler or directly from your shadowy employer. The details seem straightforward, the payment agreed upon meager and tainted, as we know from Section 10. But a subtle unease gnaws at you. Perhaps the mission feels too easy, or the escape route seems suspiciously obvious. Your training has instilled in you a deep sense of paranoia, a constant vigilance, because you know that in your world, loyalty is a fleeting commodity, bought and sold like any other. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with romantic notions of unbreakable assassin brotherhoods is that medieval assassins faced a constant threat of betrayal, both from their employers who might dispose of them to tie up loose ends or avoid payment, and from fellow assassins, rivals, or informants eager to collect bounties, making trust virtually impossible and ensuring a life of perpetual suspicion. The very nature of their clandestine work made them highly vulnerable to being sold out. Think about it if you're willing to kill for money. Why wouldn't someone else be willing to betray you for it? Imagine the myriad forms betrayal could take. Your employer, having utilized your deadly services, might decide you know too much, or that your continued existence is a liability that could expose them. A sudden, unexpected attack by your own master's guards, disguised as a common robbery, might be the first indication that your usefulness has run its course. Or perhaps your payment is never delivered, and the safe house you expected to find is empty. Or worse, a trap set by your former allies. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the casual brutality of such betrayals is the historical accounts of employers having a Plan B for their assassins. Not just escape routes, but methods to dispose of the assassin if they succeeded too well, or became too high profile. Imagine your employer having a detailed contingency plan for your death, even before your mission begins, simply because you're a loose end waiting to be tied up. Historians still argue whether the high incidence of betrayals among assassins and their employers was primarily a reflection of the overall ruthlessness and lack of ethical constraints in medieval political intrigue, where any means justified the end, or if it was an inevitable consequence of the inherent secrecy and lack of formal legal recourse within criminal organizations, making self-preservation the ultimate driving force for all parties. Was it about pure power, or the fundamental instability of an outlaw life? Internal betrayal from fellow assassins or members of your organization is another constant threat. Perhaps a rival within your own ranks seeks to gain favor by eliminating you, or a captured comrade, broken under torture. Remember Section 8, might give up your identity or your location to save themselves, turning you into a target overnight. The strict compartmentalization of information. Where operatives knew only what was absolutely necessary, remember that from Section 9's isolation was designed to limit the damage from betrayal, but it could never eliminate it entirely. Then there are external betrayals. A local informant, a disgruntled innkeeper, or even a desperate citizen might recognize you from a wanted poster, though your disguise is good. There's always a risk, or simply suspect you, and turn you over to the authorities for a reward. The price on your head, offered by the king or a wronged noble, is a powerful incentive for anyone seeking to escape poverty or gain favor. You live in a state of perpetual distrust. Every new face is scrutinized. Every seemingly friendly gesture is analyzed for ulterior motives. Your mind, already strained by paranoia, becomes even more hypervigilant, questioning everyone and everything. You might keep multiple escape routes from every safe house, multiple identities, and multiple contingency plans, knowing that the most dangerous enemy is often the one you least expect. Wearing a familiar face, you feel the cold dread of suspicion, the tightening in your gut when a supposed ally's words ring hollow, or when an unexpected figure appears in a location where only your closest contacts should know. You prepare for the worst, knowing that your life is a constant game of cat and mouse, and sometimes the cat is one of your own kind. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about dying in battle. It's about the pervasive, chilling reality of betrayal. Your existence is a constant, agonizing struggle against being sold out. A perpetual dance with treachery where your only guarantee is that eventually, someone, somewhere, will try to cash in on your life, making trust the most dangerous gamble of all in your miserable, shadowy existence. Even if you manage to navigate the treacherous waters of betrayal, avoid capture, escape the insidious threat of poison, and endure the profound loneliness of your existence. The most inescapable and corrosive aspect of your medieval assassin's life was the psychological toll burden of blood. Forget a clean conscience or peaceful sleep. Your profession, by its very nature, demanded constant contact with death, violence, and profound deception, leaving an indelible mark on your soul, a corrosive weight that slowly, relentlessly eroded your spirit. You quickly learn that taking a life, sanctioned or not, comes with a price that even tainted gold cannot pay, turning your very being into a haunted landscape. It's like carrying an invisible, perpetually growing weight on your shoulders, made of every scream, every dying breath, and every lie you've ever uttered, and it never, ever gets lighter. You lie on a hard cot, in a dimly lit room, perhaps a temporary safe house after a mission. Sleep, when it comes, is fitful, plagued by nightmares. You see the faces of your victims, the terrified nobleman, the unsuspecting merchant, the desperate guard. You relive the moments of the kill, the cold steel of the dagger, the sudden warmth of blood, the desperate, gurgling gasp. These aren't just memories, they are haunting echoes, playing on a loop in the darkness of your mind. A constant reminder of the lives you've extinguished. This relentless internal replay is a form of self-inflicted torment, a prison built of guilt and trauma. One mainstream historical fact that utterly contrasts with the romanticized image of cold, unfeeling killers is that the constant exposure to violence, the act of taking human life, often by stealth or deception, and the pervasive atmosphere of paranoia and isolation likely inflicted severe psychological trauma on medieval assassins, leading to symptoms akin to modern PTSD, including nightmares, emotional detachment, and a profound burden of guilt or defilement. While not formally recognized or diagnosed in the medieval period, the effects on an individual's psyche were undeniable. Imagine enduring such horrors daily, with no therapy, no support groups, no understanding of mental health beyond perhaps spiritual confession, which might or might not offer true absolution for your deeds. Imagine the emotional detachment that becomes a necessity for survival. To perform your duties, to wield your blade or administer your poison, Remember that from Section 5 and 12, you must suppress empathy, turn off compassion, and view your targets as mere obstacles to be removed. This deliberate desensitization, honed during your grueling training, member Section 3, allows you to kill with efficiency, but it comes at a terrible price. Your ability to feel, to connect, to experience joy or sorrow becomes muted, leaving you hollowed out, a shadow of your former self. You become proficient in the art of appearing normal, but inside, you're a landscape of emotional scars. A particularly quirky tidbit that reveals the psychological effects on these individuals, even if not fully understood at the time, is the occasional historical mention of assassins, or those involved in similar dark trades, turning to extreme religious penance in later life, or exhibiting sudden profound changes in personality, sometimes interpreted as divine madness or possession. Imagine a hardened killer suddenly dedicating their life to building a monastery, or descending into fits of raving paranoia, believed to be the devil claiming their soul, when in reality, it's just the crushing weight of years of violence catching up to them. Historians still argue whether the extreme psychological burden faced by assassins and executioners, remember them from Why Justice Sucked, ultimately led to high rates of mental instability and self-destructive behavior, or if the strong belief systems of some groups like the Hashashin or the fatalistic outlook of others provided a coping mechanism that allowed them to internalize their actions without complete mental collapse. Channeling their psychological pain into their dedication, did it break them or fuel them? The paranoia that is your constant companion, remember, isolation trust. No one from Section 9 feeds directly into this psychological toll. You can never truly relax, never feel safe. Every shadow, every whisper, every unfamiliar face is a potential threat, and your mind is constantly working, analyzing, assessing, predicting danger. This relentless hypervigilance is exhausting, leading to chronic stress, sleep deprivation, and a gradual erosion of your sanity. The lack of genuine human connection further exacerbates the burden. You cannot share your fears, your guilt, or the horrors you've witnessed with anyone. You are alone in your torment, a prisoner of your own secrets and the silent screams of your victims. This isolation prevents any form of healing or emotional processing, leaving you to fester in your own mental anguish. You feel the cold weight in your chest, the persistent knot of anxiety in your stomach, and the heavy, unshakable sense of defilement that clings to you like the stench of blood. You close your eyes, wishing for peace, for oblivion, but the images of your past, the chilling echoes of your deeds, relentlessly pursue you. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life isn't about dying in battle or facing the gallows. It's about the profound, inescapable psychological toll. Your existence is a constant, agonizing struggle against the burden of blood, a life consumed by the ghosts of your victims and the erosion of your own soul, leaving you forever haunted, a tormented shadow in a world that never truly sees your misery. After enduring the brutal recruitment, the grueling training, the perilous infiltration, the intimate use of deadly weapons, the high-stakes targets, the relentless escapes, the agonizing capture and torture, the soul-crushing isolation, the meager and tainted pay, the profound loss of identity, the insidious threat of poison, the constant betrayal, and the overwhelming psychological toll. You finally emerge from our journey through the medieval assassin's life to confront its enduring legacy myth versus misery, the romanticized image of the silent, heroic killer, leaping across rooftops and serving a noble cause is a captivating fantasy. But the awful truth of the historical assassin's existence was a relentless grind of fear, pain, suffering, and a near certain, miserable end. A stark contrast between legend and reality. You realize that the very allure of the assassin myth is built upon a deliberate historical omission, overlooking the grim, often horrifying truths of a life consumed by violence and shadows. It's like looking at a beautifully painted portrait and realizing that beneath the oils and colors, there's a canvas stretched over a skeleton. You reflect on the vivid contrasts. The cinematic assassin, agile and untraceable, contrasts sharply with the historical reality of crude stealth, arduous disguises, and the immense difficulty of evading capture. Remember those frantic escapes from Section 7. The idea of unwavering loyalty to a mysterious brotherhood stands against the pervasive paranoia and constant threat of betrayal, both internal and external, from Section 13. The glamorous, well-paid killer of fiction crumbles under the weight of meager, blood-stained wages from Section 10, barely enough for subsistence. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines this chasm between legend and reality is that while medieval assassins like the historical Nizari Ismaili or professional killers for hire did exist and perform targeted killings, their lives were far from romantic, characterized by extreme danger, short lifespans, brutal training, constant psychological strain, and often a lack of personal autonomy, a stark deviation from their modern, mythologized portrayal. Their effectiveness stemmed from ruthlessness and strategic timing, not superhuman abilities. Imagine the popular stories you've heard: the master of the hidden blade, the silent phantom, the ultimate freedom fighter. These tales conveniently forget the overwhelming filth. Remember those awful jobs in ancient Rome, many of which assassins would have experienced in disguise: the constant disease, the agonizing injuries, and the sheer discomfort of living perpetually on the run or in hiding. They don't dwell on the profound loneliness, the erosion of one's identity from Section 11, or the gnawing guilt from Section 14 that haunted the real figures. A particularly quirky tidbit that exemplifies this myth-making is how the very word assassin itself entered European languages, largely through distorted accounts from the Crusades, fueled by fear and misunderstanding of the Nizari Ismaili. These stories often embellished their alleged drug use, the hashish connection, now largely debunked by historians. Remember the debate from the intro: their supposed fanaticism, and their mystical abilities, turning them into supernatural figures of terror, rather than trained, desperate human beings. Imagine a term for a professional killer being based on a propaganda-fueled mistranslation of a drug reference. And that's the word we still use today. Historians still argue whether the persistent romanticization of assassins in popular culture, from literature to video games, is primarily a manifestation of a human fascination with rebellion against authority and the allure of hidden power, allowing us to project our own desires for control onto a dangerous past. Or if it's simply a more palatable way to consume stories of violence by stripping away the grim reality and moral complexity of historical figures who performed murder for political or personal gain. Is it about fascination or sanitization that perpetuates the myth? The medieval assassin's life was not one of glory or freedom. It was a life of grim purpose, of being a disposable tool in someone else's power struggles. Their skills were impressive, yes, born of brutal training and desperate necessity. But their existence was a testament to human misery, a constant battle against physical pain, psychological torment, and the relentless pursuit of vengeful authorities. The legacy, then, is a dual one. On one hand, the enduring legend, a powerful archetype of the silent, deadly agent, continues to fascinate. On the other hand, the grim historical reality serves as a chilling reminder of the true human cost of violence, of extreme social conditions that could force individuals into such desperate professions, and the profound suffering inherent in a life lived perpetually in the shadows. The assassin's misery fueled a terrifying reputation that continues to resonate, long after the last dagger has been drawn and the last secret whispered. You stand now, perhaps a little more enlightened, perhaps a little more disturbed, by the contrast. The beautiful cinematic leaps of faith dissolve into the reality of muddy streets, lurking guards, and painful ends. The awful truth about a medieval assassin's life is precisely what makes the myth so potent. It is the darkness, the misery, and the sheer human cost that provides the chilling backdrop to a legend that continues to enthrall us, forever linking the glamorous fantasy with its horrifying, bloody reality. Now, as the shadows of medieval castles fade and the whispers of hidden daggers grow quiet, let the stillness of your room embrace you. The desperate escapes, the agonizing captures, the pervasive loneliness, and the grim realities of an assassin's life are safely in the past, part of a history that now dissolves into the gentle hum of your fan. You've journeyed through a brutal and unforgiving world, and now it's time for you to find your own peaceful rest. Let your mind unwind, your muscles relax, and sink into a deep, undisturbed sleep, far from the burden of blood and the ghosts of the past. End of script. Sweet dreams.